Hi, everybody! It's been a long time since you've seen me on the stream, and it's because I've been so busy, and Amy has been doing such a phenomenal job with it. This Friday is actually the observed 4th of July. 4th of July actually falls on Saturday, so it kind of the holiday kind of falls onto the weekday. And so we don't have a typical stream for you today because of the US holiday. However, we got a question, and honestly, I haven't gotten questions in forever, which means that you parents are doing a great job. Amy's doing a great job answering all the questions. So to me, you didn't need my level of expertise in a while. But now we got a question that came in, and since the Friday is a holiday for us, and on top of it, I'll be flying off to Korea in a couple of days. So I wanted to make sure I was able to get this in to help answer the question that came in. Now, the question actually came from a viewer that actually had asked some questions previously about their child that was self injurious. I'll see about asking if Kangaroo can go ahead and put that link in so that you know what question was asked previously. But we're going to just jump right into the question that was submitted today. Now, the viewer says that last October, and wow, that was a long time ago, uh, they asked me about their third grade son with autism who engages in self injurious behaviors by punching himself in the chin. Now, at this point, he's still wearing the wrist guards that I recommended them using. The problem is that whenever he isn't wearing them, he's still hitting himself in his chin, and sometimes quite hard. Now, the thing is, he always wears the wrist guard to school. Since he can't hit his chin while wearing them, he started to take off his pants instead. Then the parents put suspenders on his pants, and that behavior stopped. At school, he kind of looks like the photo that we're going to just show right now. So you can see here that he's wearing the suspenders, and the suspenders are preventing him from easily pulling down his pants. More recently, the problem is that when he gets excited or highly aroused, two new behaviors have appeared. The first is he started to forcibly hitting his chin against soft mats on the floor or against tables. At home, when this happens, they'll put a helmet on him because he really dislikes the helmet. His special education teacher has been having a hard time managing his behaviors at school, so they also sent another helmet to school and asked them to put it on him whenever he starts hitting his chin. And they want to know, like, is this a good intervention, a good approach to take? All right, so I'm going to take a quick aside and address this part of it, which is, I always get questions about, is this the right approach? Will this work? All right. And I have to remind everybody, ABA is a scientific approach to a problem, right? And the thing is ABA is not about teaching specific curriculums. It's not about what you end up teaching. It's the method by which you're teaching it, and you determine the effectiveness of the method by the results, right? So in this circumstance, is this the right approach? It really depends on the results of consistent implementation of it. So, every single time your child attempts to, engage in that problematic behavior, you have them put the helmet on for a certain amount of time. Okay, that time is done, you take it off, they do it again, you put it back on, and that's being implemented at home and at school, and you're doing it consistently. Then you can start to track, okay, how frequently is he still engaging in that problematic behavior. And if the problematic behavior is not going away, so you're trying it for a month and the data tells you like, oh, it's still remaining the same, that means that intervention is not effective in some way. So for me, it sounds like it's a viable intervention. Whether or not it's actually effective or not, that I can't tell you because I'm not there and I can't see what's happening and I can't see the data as it unfolds over time. But that's how you make a determination. Is what I'm doing actually working? Is you have to take data and you have to compare one period of time over another period of time, and that's where you can start to see like, oh wow, there's a big difference, or oh okay, it's not very meaningful, the change that is actually occurring. The second behavior that popped up was about 2 months ago, and he started to bite people. When he gets upset, he'll bite whoever is nearby, friends, his younger sibling, teachers, anybody. And the parents are not quite sure how to address this particular behavior. The strategies that they're currently using are mainly intended to suppress these problem behaviors, so they're wondering whether simply suppressing them is the right approach. They've also noticed that some other children with autism don't show these levels of self-injury or aggression like their son does, and they really want to know, are these kind of behaviors related to differences in overall functioning, like comparing higher versus lower functioning kids, or whether they're the result of learned stimulus response associations? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go a little bit backward and I'm going to address the last question first, and then we'll kind of walk back systematically. All right, so autism is a spectrum disorder, right? Which means that you have kids that present very differently from one child to another, because that's how wide of a range it is. And what you want to think about is they're just like people. Like one person can be very, very different from someone else. Okay. Now the thing is that when we talk about these self-injurious and these type of aggressive type of behaviors, we're all born with a slightly different personality. You have people that are born more aggressive and you have people that are born more passive. Okay, that's normal. That's everybody. Like my daughter, the first thing that she thinks about when she gets mad is to kick your butt. Okay, my son, on the other hand, is a lot more, how should I say it, inward, so he's more likely to try to injure himself than injure others. So naturally, when they were born, they have this kind of predisposition toward certain behaviors. Now we add the environment to it, because this is all about the balance between nature and nurture, right? Oh, how you were born, and the makeup that you have at the onset, versus nurture, which is the environment and how that environment enacts on you. Now, in previous streams, we talked about, how some kids are born sandstone, how some kids are born granite, okay? And that, sandstone doesn't take a strong environment to shape it, versus granite, it's going to take a really powerful environment. So this is where the individual meets the environment, right? So for us, it's not linked to how high functioning or low functioning an individual is. It's actually tied into their personality type and how that personality type interacts with their environment. Okay, so some environments are strong enough to produce the behavior changes that are needed in kids that are born like granite. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, let's walk back a little bit and let's talk about the suppression of these problematic behaviors. Now, in the previous stream, I actually talked about, reinforcement sampling, develop more interest, opening up their world, and that's still a big component of a very effective treatment program. You need to have things to look forward to. You need to enjoy more things, because if you have nothing in life that you truly enjoy, it's just not worth living in. And then you get into more problematic behaviors because you have nothing that lifts you up. Okay, so that still holds. Like, they still need balance, meaning like, oh, you need to help your child find and learn to like more and more things. Okay, all right. Now, when we talk about suppression, okay, there's slightly different versions of suppression that we're talking about. Um, so when we are talking about wrist guards, helmets, um, like closing the door when the child is likely to run off, right? All of these are environmental changes that kind of restrict the opportunities for your child to engage in these problematic behaviors, but they don't actually target them for elimination. Okay, let that sink in. These methods are only to kind of safeguard and help with the child not easily producing the problematic behaviors. These methods actually do not work on getting rid of the problematic behaviors themselves. Okay. All right. So, you use the what we would call restraints, because that's what it's doing. It's restraining their behavior, right? So these physical restraints, which is like, oh, the wrist guards, the helmets, things like that. Now, the big caveat for me is I don't like restraints. Okay, restraints, like, it's one of those nightmare scenarios where, like, oh, if I have to use restraint, I'll use it just so that the child remains safe. But that can't be the only intervention, because once you go down the road of restraints, it's really challenging. I mean, so difficult to walk back. Okay, so I use restraints in a very, very selective situation, and in your son's situation sounds like that's the type of situation, but that's not the only intervention that I run, because again, it's not an actual suppression or elimination of the behavior. It's just we're giving you such a limited window to engage in this behavior that you don't, or you can't do it. Okay, it's not oh, I've learned to control my behaviors, I've learned not to run away, I've learned not to hit myself. And that's where punishment comes in. Okay, and the thing is that I know a lot of people are out there are like, oh, oh, punishment bad. Okay, remember, we're talking about the science of ABA. We're not talking about kind of like everyday life punishment. We're talking about the precision of punishment to reduce problematic behaviors. Okay, now I've talked a lot on the stream about the types of consequences that we use, the types of punishments that we use. Okay, and there are several that we heavily work with. One is food. Why? Because most of our kids have food restrictions. They don't eat a wide variety of things. And now there's more and more research that's pumping out about just how vital our gut biome is, how we process foods and things like that. And there's a growing amount of literature about just how important that whole process is. So if you eliminate by their picky eating habits a large portion of whole foods that they can eat, it kind of puts them in a very, very bad position right at the get-go. And that's why I myself like using food, because it is something that I want them to improve on anyways. And if we use it a lot, it's going to just facilitate their desensitization to that food or whatnot. Okay. All right. So food is one option. Okay. And it doesn't have to be things that are really challenging, to implement. Um, Henry in the U.S. When he started with us, he was such an aggressive child, And the first thing that we started with, using punishments with him on, was strawberries, because he couldn't eat any fruits or vegetables. Okay, and this kid was very constipated. He only pooped like once or twice a week at the most. And then when the stools came out, they would be rock hard and he'd be screaming. So he didn't have a good time on the toilet. And so for us, we wanted to start in with food to address the aggression. Okay, so what we did was we got strawberries, we cut it up into very, very small pieces, and every time he's aggressed against us, we made him eat a piece of the strawberry. Okay, so we start with very small pieces, then we grew and grew and grew them, and as he tolerated them more and more, then when he got used to them, we switched them out to like blueberries and then raspberries, and we just kept on expanding the types of foods that we would have him eat. So that's one option, is foods, right? Okay, and foods can be anything from like fruits or vegetables that you want them to eat but they currently don't eat, to healthy things like, apple cider vinegar, any sauces that are very common in the foods that you eat that the child doesn't eat, and generally a lot of times it's easier to start with sauces because they're easy to dispense. You can put them in like a squirt, not a squirt bottle. I don't know. It's a squeeze bottle, a small one, and then you can just be able to get in their mouth and squeeze, and they have it in there, But I would look for something that you can implement right away and consistently. Okay, things like ginseng, ginkgo biloba, anything that fish oil, even like nowadays you can get fish oil in this capsule forms, but back in the day, for health reasons, my parents made us, just straight cod liver oil or fish oil that's just straight on the spoon, and that was just nasty tasting, but it's good for you, right? So that's the other thing you can look at doing. It's like, like fish oil, where you can actually dispense it via a spoon, or put it in a dispenser and give it to the child. Okay. Now the thing is, one thing with food, I don't know your child, and you know your child. So for kids that have allergies, you just have to pay particular attention to the allergies that they have, and that you're not serving them anything that is going to cause an allergic reaction. All right. All right. Now, for really challenging behaviors that, oh my God, they're going to hurt me, they're going to hurt someone else, okay, I need to stop it right away, then I would recommend very strong food consequences, things like hot sauce or a wasabi or something like that, something that is going to be very shocking to the system and get them to be able to stop, because you're either, so this is kind of like how you're looking at the balance, right? You're either going to like, you know what, my child might get a lot of concussions I'm not aware about, the NFL, National Football League, the American football, as it were. There's a lot of stuff coming out about CTEs, which is having like these chronic collisions in your brain due to the type of sport that they play and the damage it does. So if you have a child, that's constantly causing them to have this movement in their skull, undoubtedly there's going to be damage in their brain. So you have to weigh the pros and cons, right? Which is like, what is going to be worse for this child, enduring years and years of constantly doing this, or being able to get rid of the behavior using something strong, and getting rid of that particular behavior that might be a threat to themselves, might be a threat to others. All right, but that's for you to make a determination on. I'm just telling you, okay, what from my expertise has worked. Okay, so the first thing, remember, food. The second thing is exercise. Okay, and I generally like using consequences that are a kill two birds with one stone type of thing. Most of the kids I work with lack functional strength. You know, they lack core strength, they lack good motor movement strength. Okay. And so we devise exercises so that when they engage in a problematic behavior, then we have them engage in exercise, like a certain amount of exercises. Every time they do this, they have to exercise this amount, you know, and usually it's we go by repetitions, like, oh, okay, you have to do it 5 times or 10 times or 20 times, but then what we do is we make them do it. One trick that we use is that we try to find these consequences that are going to be really meaningful to the child, meaning like, oh, this is going to be hard on the child, easy for me to implement, but ultimately by going through these exercises, the child's going to benefit because they're going to get healthier and stronger and better coordinated. Okay. All right, so that's my thing with exercise. You know, we all wish we could exercise more. We're doing it now contingent on a problematic behavior occurring. Okay. Now you also want to try to see, like, if the child does a lot of like using his hands to hit himself, you will want to think about exercises that require the child to use their hands so that they aren't free to hit themselves. Okay. So that's where you would like do planks or other things that you can make sure that the child's hands are occupied. Okay. Now the thing is with exercises, it's really, really difficult to follow through depending on how strong your child is. Okay. Now, in previous videos, I've talked a lot about like, oh, how do you handle a child, you know? And the worst thing you can do is overpower them. Okay. What that means is that you're using strength versus really learning good technique. Okay. And good technique involves using angles, speed, not going against the child's strengths, but learning how to go in more circular patterns. So if you want to look for those videos, I would highly recommend that to you to learn all those techniques. You know, it's just about learning leverage and angles and all that stuff, but it takes practice to do, and takes good practice to go in and out with your technique, you know? So it's never good to kind of hold the child down, because the holding itself is considered a restraint. Okay. And the odd thing is about all these restraints, the child invariably starts to rely on these restraints in order to stop them from engaging in the behavior, because they've lost all behavior control. And what you really want to do is have your child learn how to build up that control again. All right. So with one of the kids that I worked with, you know, they needed the arm guards to keep themselves from hitting in the head, but we had a reinforcement sampling program. We had a toy play program, which kind of worked on expanding the child's enjoyment of different things. And then on top of it, we would systematically reinforce him by putting him back on the restraints when we can take one side of the restraint off. We'd be there to kind of response block, and response blocking is not restraint. Okay, so restraint is holding the child, response blocking is kind of hovering, and if they try to go and hit themselves, you're there to stop them and put their hands down, but you're not putting their hands down by holding it down. You're just putting it down and you're out again. So this is the in and out technique that is really vital for people to learn how to deal with aggressive kids, or kids that engage in a lot of self-injury. Okay, so you're going in and out and making sure that the child is doing that. And then the more accurate description that I can give you is that you're trying to just facilitate what you want them to do. So we might have them play with a very short, easy toy. We take off one brace, and then we facilitate them and teach them how to play with that toy. So if it's like a puzzle, then it might just be one puzzle piece off, and then we're just prompting them to put that puzzle piece in, then they're done. And they're like, great job, boom, I'm going to put this risk guard back on you. Okay, so you're reinforcing their compliance with the task by putting on the risk guard. Okay, a little bit weird, but stay with me. This is how it works, right? Because they actually like the risk guard, because the risk guard keeps them from hurting themselves, and ultimately they don't want to hurt themselves, but a lot of times things become habit and they don't know what else to do. Okay, so that's what you have to do, is give these moments in time where you're reinforcing the child by taking the brace off, having them do something short, reinforcing them by putting the brace back on. Okay, now you don't increase the time the brace is off until you can see, like, I don't need to worry about blocking him anymore. Now he knows, like, okay, I can complete this very short, simple task, and then I'll get the restraint back. Okay, so when that happens, then you can increase the time so that you get them used to operating without that brace and them still feeling comfortable in that situation. All right. All right. So that's the second thing, right? The exercise consequence. Now, the third thing is taking away something that they really want. Okay, that's always an option. And so, like, for some kids that love electronics, we might take their games away, we might take the electronics away, but we would have kind of like a tiered list of what's the highest level, and all the way down, and then we just kind of every instance we're trying to get rid of the preferred item, so that every time you hit, you lost this, or every time you hit, you lost this. The problem is that in order to take things away, your child has to like some things. Okay, one of our clients actually recently, we set up a little token system for him, and of course you're like, token systems, you told me. All right, you have to know how to use token systems, and you have to understand how token systems work, not to fall into the trap. And the trap is this: the child doesn't learn any internal motivation to do stuff. They only do stuff because a token is available to them. Okay, that's the danger. And then most people start using token systems without any kind of exit strategy, without a plan to let me get out of here. All right, and so then you have kids that kind of grow up and they're like, they have to do homework, and you say, you got to do your homework. It's like, sure, what do I get for it? So because they're used to this tit for tat kind of thing, and I hate that. I just don't like that. I like kids that are internally motivated, and you build in internal motivation through reinforcement. Okay, and reinforcement is not telling them in advance what they're going to get. It's not rewarding them. Okay, it is bringing in reinforcement after they've listened to you, to make sure that they are reinforced for listening to you. Okay, now the thing is that when it comes to reinforcers, right, you have to develop the things that they enjoy. Without that enjoyment in life, then what's the point? Okay, and that's an important thing that I want to circle back to, is making sure that you're doing that. All right. Taking items away. So let me get back to the example. So our child loves eating. Loves eating. Funny thing is, when he started with us, very, very rigid with his eating patterns. Would not stay seated to eat, and would not eat a lot of different foods. Once we started working with him, boom, this kid loves eating. It doesn't matter what it is. Actually, I should say he loves American food. Okay, he loves all food in general, like Korean and American food, but he has a particular taste for like pizzas and burgers and In-N-Out in California, things like that. So we know that he loves that stuff. Okay, so what we designed was a token system where he could lose tokens based on inappropriate behaviors like not listening to the teacher, screaming. Like we had a number of different things that he could lose a token for. And so we give him a certain number of tokens that he can lose before he crossed the threshold. Now, once he crossed the threshold, then what he did was he lost that particular meal, right? So if he's working in the morning, he's losing the meal for lunch. And if he's working in the afternoon, he's losing the meal for dinner. And after dinner, he's losing the breakfast for the next day. Now, hold on. You're like, oh, I can't believe you're not feeding him. No, no, no. Okay. He's losing his preferred foods. Okay? So what that means is parents normally cook things that he really enjoys eating, and that's what their dinners are. But what we decided was like, hey, you love food? Great. As long as you behave appropriately within the scope of these behaviors, then you can have the variety and the foods that you enjoy. However, you cross that threshold, and now everybody still has their regular meal except for you. Guess what the child's going to eat? Rice porridge or oatmeal. Something that we made sure to let parents know it should be bland. It should not be like, oh, this is the best tasting rice porridge in the world. No, you want that child to feel the pain of it. So we're not going to let the child go hungry. Okay, we're going to make sure the food is nutritious, but don't add salt. Don't add things that are going to make it extremely tasty. You're going to keep it healthy, keep it something that, hey, this is nutritious for you. Okay, but it's not going to be tasty. So that's what we have running for that particular child. So with that, you can look at that as well in terms of, the removal. But since I don't know your child well, it's really hard for me to kind of blind recommend something. All right. But those are the three broad categories of actual elimination of behaviors rather than the forestalling or environmental conditions that keep the behavior from occurring. Okay. Now, in order for you to kind of better understand that, let's say you have a kid that runs away and they always like to run out of the room. Okay, a lot of BCBAs out there might be like, oh, you just close the door. Okay, and then that'll stop them from running away, because then, by the time they reach the door, they have to open it, and then you can grab them and you can keep them from running out. The problem with that is that doesn't actually teach them not to run away. That teaches them that, hey, it's a little bit more difficult right now to run away, but I haven't learned not to run away. And when you're talking about getting rid of behaviors, you have to teach the child that what they're doing is not working. All right. So what I want is them to experience a ton of failure. I'm leaving that door open. You try to run out, I'm stopping you right away. You try to run out, I'm stopping you right away. You try to run out, I'm stopping you right away. Every time they fail, they learn that running away is not effective. Okay? Now, either I do that or I leave the door open, they run away, and I'm going to consecrate them. Okay, I'm going to give them a food they don't like. I'm going to make them exercise. I'm going to do something that's going to be meaningful to the child. Okay, so that there's a cost to the behavior. So that's the difference between closing a door and having an intervention that's actually targeting the problem behavior. The risk guards are the door. You're basically closing it, limiting the child's ability to actually hit themselves, but you're not actually addressing it, and you need to actually address it in order for the possibility of that behavior going away. All right, I hope that helps. Happy 4th of July to everybody. If you need clarification, please submit additional questions, or if there's anything you want me to clarify that I wasn't clear on, please let me know, and I'm more than happy. Like I said, I'll be in Korea for probably the next couple of months. I won't be part of the live stream because Amy's got that handled. However, any questions that come in, I'm more than happy to answer in this format. And if there's anything else you need, please let us know. All right. Happy 4th of July, and I'll see everybody later. Bye bye. Oh, and before I forget, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, place a comment below, and let your friends and family know about this incredible resource.